Welcome. This is Louis Brantmeyer of Clever Orbits, and in a rare show of genuine fraternal affection, Tyler Addison, Brantmeyer has shown himself.
Can't see me.
Oh, well, it was metaphorical. So, anyway, today we are here to discuss the episode aptly titled of Discovery Season 2, entitled Brother. And it's interesting and ironic because Tyler has been gone for a long time, and I was actually looking for him, and we found him. Luckily, he's not in a mental institution. Luckily, he does not have a neck beard. And luckily, he's not the linchpin of a season-long plot involving 7 red things.
We don't know if Spock's in a mental institution, do we?
Well, I think we do eventually, but it was while he was on his leave. And apparently the left hand of mental institution in Starfleet didn't communicate to the right hand of Captain Pike that his officer was being held for medical issues. Anyway, I liked this episode. It was fun. Richard, your ball.
So, this is Richard Futrell, by the way. I like this episode a lot, too. And I think the reason I liked it was because I was coming into this with rock-bottom expectations. So, like, when we finished talking about the end of Discovery at the end of the first season, I thought, yeah, this is pretty good. And then as Discovery sort of percolated in my memory and sort of processed there, my memory of it just got kind of worse and worse. And what I recalled was a show that's just sort of flailing around, trying to go in all these different directions, and it doesn't know what it wants to do. And that's probably reflected by the fact that they had a lot of turnover in their staff making the show too. A show that couldn't even decide if it wanted to be 1 or 2 seasons, so they had this weird break, this weird lacuna in the middle. Anyway, and then there's all the short treks. And if you listen to the video, which we're going to put out right before this one, where we talk about the most recent short trek starring Mudd, you'll see that we have quite a low estimation of short trek and its sampling of possible directions for the series. So anyway, I went into this episode with the lowest possible expectations. I was like, actually, the initial notes I wrote down for the first few scenes were quite negative, but I actually really enjoyed it in the end. It's made me, again, I've been burned on this before, it's made me quite hopeful and optimistic about Discovery. And the reason that I like it again is because it seems to know where it's going and what it's doing, and it doesn't appear to be biting off more than it can chew. It basically looks like what we're going to get is a fun and interesting adventure where we're trying to find Spock, and there's this underlying family drama, and there's probably going to be some interesting science involving dark matter. There's going to probably be some interesting philosophy involving why Spock and Burnham had this falling out. So I think this sounds really cool. It sounds like they even had this idea that there's like the 7 red points they need to find or whatever. They've set out a structure for the season. The problem with the last season is it had no structure. It was just wandering around in the wilderness. Now we've got a structure. We've got a goal. We've got an exciting and doable premise. So this is. I'm excited. I think this is going to be a fun ride. What do you all think?
Tyler, I'm gonna give the last opening salvo. So you go next.
I mostly agree with Richard on all counts. I was worried about the direction of the show. I'm no longer worried about that now with this whole Spock mystery, although I did have an expectation that he would show up in this first episode.
Did you just say expectation?
Okay. Maybe. Anyway, I thought it was pretty cool that we're getting this show amidst this news that Star Trek IV, the Kelvin timeline film, is no longer really happening anytime soon. So, bravo Discovery for being the Star Trek we need right now, or rather the one we're just going to get. I pretty much loved all the performances all around. I think Anson Mount's Pike is giddy and it's just adorable at times. And I appreciate his, I don't know, if I'd say I'd appreciate the presence of another white male taking the captain's chair. But if we're going to have Pike do it, I think this was the right guy to play Pike. And Anson Mount deserves a good role, and I'm glad he's having fun with it. What else? Tilly's great. Stamets don't go. Let's see. Saru, just keep being you.
How'd you like Commander Janet Reno?
Oh, you mean Jet Reno. God, what a name. Tig Notaro. Wonderful. God, breakout character. Please give us 10 seasons of her. Just her.
Yeah, she's pretty funny.
You guys can look her up on Netflix if you want to. She's a very successful stand-up comic who beat cancer to be here with us and share her views. She's quite amazing. So, yeah, I look forward to seeing more of her on the show. She was great. What else? What a beautiful way to illustrate we're not doing the red shirt thing by killing the guy with the biggest shit-eating grin in the episode.
You could tell he was going to die, though.
Well,
once you started talking about how you need to trust my calculations, there were like echoes of Star Wars there. Like, how can you not trust man? Then you knew he was going to get hit by an asteroid right away, and he was.
Like, good job. You stared precisely. If you had turned your head even slightly, you would have seen that almost unmissable asteroid. God, what peripheral did he have? Anyway, it was enormous. Good riddance, Connolly. Anyway, who else was great? Non, the red shirt commander. She didn't die. Awesome. Stay alive, Non. And then stuff with Sarek and Burnham. Really, it's just all playing. It's well played. Their relationship, I think, is something that I've enjoyed about Discovery so far. Even though there were times when I wasn't really sure about it in the first season. So far, their interaction, all of their discussions in the past, and how she was brought up alongside Spock, it's genuinely got me interested in the mystery. What's Spock doing? Why does he have a friggin' beard? What are these red things? Where the hell are the red things? Quote Anson Mount's character. Where's my red thing? Who the hell's my red thing? Or some paraphrasing. Anyway, that was a fun line.
Where's my damn red thing?
Where's my damn red thing? All right, good job, Anson. You got me excited about the episode, and good job.
I will third.
You got me excited about the entire show, once again.
I will third most of what you guys said, and I will raise you not every cage is a prison, not every loss is eternal. Now, what's interesting about that, right, is when he picks up that fortune off the floor, Captain Pike, it's referencing both The Cage, the episode that happened before this show, right, where they were still wearing the sweaters, and apparently they came back and wear the sweaters again later, but that's fine. We won't talk about that. In 2250, whatever, before the start of Discovery. So not every cage is a prison. And we find that out later, right? He goes back to Talos 4, whatever, and ends up making up for the loss of his mobility as a fleet captain who experiences this horrible accident between sometime at the end of Discovery and that season 1 2-part episode called The Menagerie in the original series. So, like, that loss was not eternal. And what's interesting about too, there's a lot of I think sly looks at the viewers who were worried, and kind of clever, witty, but subtle, like really nicely subtle comments made on the fans' responses to the first season. And none of them heavy-handed, none of them mean-spirited. All of them sort of like knowingly winking at the audience saying, hey, we got where you're coming from, and we know what you want, and we're listening. Namely, not every cage is a prison and not every loss is eternal, right? So people started watching Star Trek Discovery season 1, and they're like, this is a prison. This is horrible. This is terrible.
Yeah. That's what I thought.
and so you might be referencing, as the viewer, the constraints of a prequel. For example, why didn't they set it in the far future, like the Picard show or whatever? Or they might be talking about, like, what's gone before in season 1. Well, not every cage is a prison. And there's a lot that can be done that's beautiful with what has gone before. And because of the advent of immediate hyper commentary on episodes like this, we have a sensitivity, I think, to when things come out in the first season in a way that seen and heard by the writers that wasn't present for Voyager, DS9, or Next Generation. Might have been present for Enterprise. I wasn't participating in that game then. but they're trying to let us know that we don't have to worry. And any time that we think we might have lost in watching that season will be redeemed through this being an incarnation of Star Trek that we know and love. And on that, I watched this episode, and it was fun enough the first time through. However, I was extremely exhausted, so I fell asleep in the last 10 minutes, and I didn't get those, and through no fault of the show, right? I was just freaking exhausted. And I was watching it late at night. It was like 11 o'clock, and it was after a second birthday party for me. And so, I missed those really important character building notes between Burnham and Spock, because Spock's not actually there, but the characterization of her really love for Spock is right there, and potently so. And in fact, this is such a good sign because it's such a contradiction or a contravention from The Escape Artist. There were no less than, 4 different moments of compassion. And I'll just run through them straight off the bat. And of course there's going to be 4. I do believe that this is the longest single Star Trek episode in history. It was like an hour and a minute long, which is interesting. It's cinematic in look and in length. And, I think they're just going to exploit the long-form narrative capacity of television that's available on streaming services like Netflix. It actually was a wonder to me that they still have a 3 to 5 or however many act format. It strikes me that they could just plot it as a continuous narrative without any act breaks. Then that would probably be difficult for the writers to actually write.
There's commercial breaks too.
Oh yeah, that's right. This is produced so that it can be syndicated later, potentially beyond just Netflix.
Grade, CBS, whatever. Then you got to watch commercials.
Oh, that's right. Well, if you don't buy the premium grade like we at Clever Orbits have, thank God for you, Richard.
Good job, Richard. Team player.
Take it for the team. After I paid for the Dropbox 2 years, I'm really glad that you're paying for the CBS All Access. We're in it together. I don't have Netflix anymore, actually. Oh, CBS is where I watch all of my Star Trek. There were moments. No, we really appreciate it, by the way, Richard. So, moments of compassion. The first one was that really stood out to me, and assuredly there were more, right? Assuredly there were actually more. But the first one that really moved me was Pike showing sensitivity to the collective trauma of the crew and letting them know, hey, I'm not Lorca, and here's why you can trust me, and I know this is a hard left turn. I'm going to pace your reality and be right there with you in what you're experiencing and what you're feeling. And then there was my experience of Stamets. And he didn't really play this as well near the end of season 1. I guess because he was walling off his emotions or whatever in order to finish the war and for them to finish the season, basically. But Stamets is now sympathetic in that he's had this terrible loss. And so Tilly's connection with Stamets, when you look at the growth between season 1 and season 2, the great myth of long-form arc-style television is that we're in the arc for the grand story bites, the grand shifts in what's going on and what's unpredictable and what's going to happen next. And I think that's where the writers kind of potentially went overboard in the first season, as they shoved as many shifts in grand form narrative in as possible, when really, since the first season of Next Generation, what I have really appreciated is a subtlety of shift in characterization. And that's here. You look at Stamets being really pissy with Tilly in the first season early on, and then you look at them here, and it's just delightful. It's so sweet. So, that was really well done. I really loved that. And also her not wanting him to leave, her tearing up, and her love for the crew. She is still this representation of Starfleet optimism that's unmitigated and unconstrained and sometimes unrestrained. I did really like Stamets's, you will repeat after me, I will say fewer things. That was just great because it'll help her as a captain, right? And so that was the first moment of compassion that stood out to me. or excuse me, the first and the second. And then Tilly telling Stamets, "You're so invited to the party." I was like she was waiting for and listening for and looking for an opportunity to wake up the part of him that really loves being on Discovery and being in community and in connection. And he was isolating himself. And like being a good friend to him, she doesn't want that. She doesn't want him to suffer. And that's great. And then finally, the biggest, the strongest, the hook that is deep in my heart, that is pulling me through this season, with ease and effortlessness, is that last sequence at the end with Burnham and Spock. Like, we barely hear his voice. There's on the internet they actually call it a Spock tease throughout the episode.
Nice.
I think that was the AV Club or maybe IO9, but
a skis.
Yeah, skis. Well, skis is a different thing, Richard. That's too short. That makes him a horrible thing. But I get what you're doing. So her heart for her brother, her love and appreciation for her brother, like the fact that something happened, and so as I watched it the first time, I was left with this existential quandary. I was like, should I really be giving my time to entertainment this much? And it was because I hadn't seen the last 10 minutes of the episode. Like, it ended up being a not very rewarding experience without those last 10 minutes. It felt like, they're reusing the Star Trek 2009 asteroid field space jump, or they're, on Penske File they say, all right, they're mixing that scene from Star Trek Into Darkness where Kirk and Khan go through the field with the space jump from the first movie. And, of course, Kurtzman, who worked on both of those, is doing what seems to work. And I was just like, do we need this? This feels like Star Wars. Like, I mean, it's big, it's a loud, dumb action sequence. And, when it's in the midst of a long-form character narrative that is really getting you to empathize with the whole crew, and all, as individuals, as unique, well-characterized, well-drawn individuals. And so here's what I do with my events, right? If I fill the room with good people, the story that gets told, basically what happens throughout the day, depends on them and is inflected by them. It's as much about their responses to whatever happens that you want to see as whatever happens. So it's interesting. We could start to develop an aesthetics of what is the ideal form of any story here, and what is the most motivating concatenation of variables in a Star Trek story or a story in general that will engage a viewer or a reader and satisfy and fulfill and be rewarding as a story. And I think the emphasis on characterization that is done in the Kelvin timeline films, when appreciated and understood for what they are, is really great. And yes, we can still say that to some extent we would have liked more of the science and the philosophy. We had some, and we had basically enough, but we would have liked more, even given our very high opinion of those films. And so it's my contention that if you do the work to build up characters and to build up empathy for the crew, then those philosophical questions will resound much more deeply in and through the psyches and the engagements of these people with those questions. So we don't have much yet. We have this weird sort of Red Angel thing. And we have vague Cassini space probe footage overlaid suggestions towards some kind of higher power or mythological story being fulfilled or something in the beginning of the episode, which those shots from Cassini were awesome, incidentally. I thought it was the strangest way to start a Star Trek episode, but about 4 seconds in, when I started seeing pictures of Saturn, I was like, oh, yes, this is why Star Trek, because it's cool to explore space and take pictures, which, when they bring out the cameras later on in the episode, and she's literally taking snapshot flashbulb pictures of the asteroid, I was a little confused. I was just like, that's a very odd choice for a 23rd century ship to have, like, Polaroid-style picture taking devices. But
she's into vintage technology.
Well, yeah, sure. If it's an oblique reference to the Cassini probe and to the long hallowed history of space exploration that uses cameras like that, then I'm all good with it. So I already had a solution as I was sharing the problem. And
I mean,
there's a lot.
Yeah. Retro fad that must be happening in their fashion too, in order to explain the original series.
Yeah, I liked that whole you guys got the new uniforms thing.
Yeah, I pointed that out.
I mean, even some people had been complaining online that they don't know who the bridge crew is, and so Pike, Clay on the Penske file talks about, like, I think they put that in there just as a specific response to us guys. Like he was talking about their podcast because he complained. He was like, I have no idea who these people's names are.
They weren't the only ones complaining.
Yeah. I mean, Detmer, for one, and Bryce. Bryce is really cool, and all these people. So anyway, and then Saru. Saru had some good moments. Really? Are you surprised? That was awesome.
I like when he said, I can smell from your endocrine system that you're agitated.
Yes, apparently he has a new power.
That's a bit invasive, Saru.
Or was it just her sweat? Was she just sweating? Was that literally all that was going on?
That's probably pretty much it.
Oh, okay. So it doesn't take that much. Yeah. So, I mean, there's a lot of smaller chunk, like loose thread-ish type things in here. A lot of great quotes, like, Tilly, you're going to be a great captain because you do everything out of love. Like, that warmed my heart. I was like, yes. How and why I live as an entrepreneur, and then, like, it's how I want everybody to be living their life. Like be in it because you love it. It's going to be interesting to see what actually shows up that's questionable or some people. I know Red Letter Media guy was talking about the trailer and was like, you put this Thanos-like villain and we'll kill all sentient life in the galaxy. What are you doing? You're trying to turn this thing into Marvel. There's an action film. And I was just like, no. So we've got reasons to believe that it's not just going to be kind of coattailing on the success of superhero films. And then the Enterprise. Go ahead. Yeah.
I have enough faith in the intelligence of at least the producers for them to realize that to make another success like Marvel, it has to be more than just action. They know that.
And more than just supervillains.
Yes. I honestly see the idea that we're going to be fighting to preserve all life in the galaxy as good, because, like, as stakes go in terms of TV shows, that's actually kind of low, right?
Yeah, it's
pretty easy to write the plot. It's pretty easy to write that plot, and it's not biting. It's not biting off more than it can chew, because that's a pretty standard thing we do, and a pretty standard story we write, at least in modern media.
Yeah, I mean, it happened last season, right? All universes everywhere being threatened.
In one line of dialogue.
Inconceivable.
where no one looks too concerned.
Everyone's just sort of like confused by that, yeah. So, Baby Spock is not only an asshole, but is apparently really good at art. What you guys think of that?
I mean, I guess this episode really is decidedly not giving us information about what Spock's problem with Michael Burnham is. All we get is that he made that weird dragon thing with his 3D iPad go towards her. And that's fine. I like vague. Start off vague and make it specific later.
I also like that he's just generally kind of standoffish, even at such a young age, and that he's using artistic expression to navigate dealing with emotions, and that he's really good at what he does. And that he also, like, there's a certain kind of child menace quality. Like, maybe he's afraid of a new person in the house, and so he gets her to associate him with the dragon, right? So that
she'll respect him.
Yeah, so that she'll respect him. And the idea of Spock being still in development, like, we get a little bit of that in the very first Kelvin movie, right? We don't get that much. We really don't. But we get some. And so this will be interesting. I mean, like, it's almost kind of an impossible task for the writers, and they're like really killing it. I mean, you have to do something that's interesting to people who've been watching Star Trek for 50 years, add something unique but doesn't disrespect everything that's gone before, that integrates with everything that's gone before, that also goes where no man has gone before. And you've got to play to modern audiences' sensibilities, CGI, pacing, snappy, kind of sarcastic wittiness, which you're right, Tyler, they capture that really correctly with Janet Reno. I thought that was great. Jet Reno, which is of course her name. And yeah, I think they're doing really well. In fact, I like Pike President 2020. I feel safe. I feel safe and trusting and excited to have him in command. Like him having the bridge crew read his record is really just brilliant. And it actually is curious to me, like what amount of astrophysics is actually necessary to be a starship captain? Considering
let's talk about this report card a little bit here. So first of all, like, isn't it kind of weird?
He got like A's in everything.
Yeah,
but the F is like big.
It's almost worrying.
If he really got an F in a class, it should be like there should be some C's in there, right, and some B's, right? I'm a professor. I grade students. I know what a student that makes an F looks like, and they're usually not straight A's otherwise. And isn't it kind of weird that his report card, like his transcript, is in his record like that? Like, wouldn't that be shoved off into the distant past and no one cares about it anymore? He's been a captain.
No, it has to be up front because that's just how Pike is.
I guess. He might be proud of the F. He's probably proud of that F.
Yes, he's really fucking proud.
He really is. It's a flaw. It makes him human. It makes him honest and transparent. And I think he is actually being transparent. Like, I don't think he's lying or pretending or whatever. I think he's legitimately, like, letting people see who he is from moment one very clearly so that they know what they're dealing with and so that they don't have to worry. I mean, and it's an interesting thing.
Because he knew that people wouldn't trust him if he got all A's.
And maybe he actually knows astrophysics. Yeah. There's a moment in the new Spider-Man film where the character gets 0 out of 100 on this test, and the teacher takes him aside and says, "Hey, you know, the only way you could do that is if you knew all the answers and you chose to give me the wrong ones. So I'm not buying it. You passed this test, or you got an A on this test." And so one would hope that Starfleet has some way of preventing people from doing stuff like that.
Yeah, that's not what I would do if I was the teacher.
Well, I mean, it was just a statistically highly improbable. Yeah, but yeah. So I mean, I love the episode. I love Pike. So what did you guys think about the inside of Discovery? I mean, I love that we get to see the turbo lift. It's really cool and how it works. But the inside of Discovery looks vast. Like, it looks huge.
Quite large. That shuttle bay is quite a bit larger than we saw on the Enterprise.
I remember it being that way when that space whale came forward.
Yeah, the space whale fit in there.
And then it looked like the asteroid didn't exactly make it in. Anyone see around the edge of the entrance to the bay? It seemed just like, guys, there's
the shuttle bay needs some TLC.
Structural damage.
Yeah, there was some serious structural damage.
Dangerously close to the nacelles, so we should get on that.
Yeah. I actually thought that Discovery ended up looking pretty cool this episode. I mean, it ends up being a little flat compared to other ships. But, I mean, it's always seemed a little flat. That worked much better when they were using the spore drive because it has this gyroscopic quality when they jump. Which now that I'm rewatching Battlestar Galactica at the same time, the whole idea of jumping isn't that new. I guess all sci-fi steals from all sci-fi eventually, but I'm not accusing them of stealing. I mean, there are a limited number of types of theoretical faster than light transport, and you're bound to use one that's similar. The opening. The cinematic quality of the whole episode. The music was, I didn't notice it really, but the opening was so beautiful. Oh, the nebula, and then the Milky Way. I just
and the angel-like thing.
The angel-like thing, yeah.
Yes, the damn red things.
The damn red things, produced by the angel-like thing. Yeah, what do you guys think about this message available only to those whose hearts were open to receive it? Like what? What? Huh? What are we talking about here?
I have no idea.
I was drawing a blank. Definitely seems like it would be crucial to Spock's frame of mind.
It's another mysterious and vague gnomic statement to keep us hooked for the next episode when the truth will be revealed. Just like that dragon Spock draws. What's up with Spock?
Maybe.
Spock, what's up with you, man? What's going on?
Yeah, is that your way of saying go away? It's a great way.
The whole idea of a Starfleet brother or sister, that was really cool to me. I'm not going to leave a Starfleet brother to die. I mean, that was almost, it wasn't a moment of compassion because it was more of an abstract concept for me, but it totally fits. Totally fits with our ideal of Starfleet. There's no gritty, gray scale ethical dilemma or drama here. There are people who are down there potentially, and we have to do whatever we can to save them. Real simple. Like that, the return to that, we need more moments like that, where it's just really clear what there is to be done, and people make choices to do what there is to do to, take care of other members of the human species, and or other members of Starfleet, right? Which Starfleet is broader than just humans. And I agree, that the arrogant blue shirt dies rather than the red shirt. I literally looked over at Hyrule when they were going on the landing party. Notice he called it a landing party, not an away mission, which I liked, because that's 23rd century lingo. I pointed to the red-shirted woman and I was like, Hyrule, that woman is going to die. And then I was wrong. It was great. It was really kind of refreshing and delightful. And I also didn't like that guy. And I will quote the Penske file. Who actually thought about that guy at all after he died? Okay.
What was his name? Eric?
Yeah, we don't even have his name right.
He's clearly meant to be someone you dislike and then feel good when he dies.
Yeah. Well, I mean, he's a contrast for Burnham. Burnham's confident but humble. He's arrogant and pushy. He's arrogant and confrontational. He's not being considerate. He's being kind of just rude and obnoxious. So there's that. And then I like that they're going to use the Spore Drive again in the near future. I was thinking about that all year. I was or ever since I saw these trailers, I was like, well, if the next red thing is 30,000 light years away, that's like 20 years of Voyager. I mean, that's like Star Trek Voyager, where they're traveling. So or it's at least 3.5 years of Voyager is how long it took.
I mean, they're a little bit dodgy from season to season, episode to episode, series to series about distances and times. But yeah.
Well, they're dodgy, but I think everybody who's writing now is aware of how big the galaxy is, and they're taking that into account on some level. There's some book somewhere. There's some story Bible that has that written in ink somewhere. And they actually, I loved this because I met Denise and Michael Okuda, who created the Star Trek Encyclopedia at SCLV, or I met the wife anyway, and really sweet couple. And there's in Pike's record, he gets an Okuda Award. So anybody who works in a tiny detail like that clearly has an awareness and an appreciation for the breadth and depth. And my God, Richard, can you imagine being a writer who had to read the entire Star Trek Encyclopedia?
And memorize it and take a test.
and take a test. They don't even have an updated encyclopedia circa 2017 or 18. It only goes up to 2016. That was the one that I bought, or my dad got me for Christmas, that I opened maybe 3 times. It's really beautiful, though. It's really beautiful. So the last thing I'll say about this episode, and then we can go to we can go to the ratings, is, Kurtzman seems to be doing a good job show running, managing people, and the whole, Section 31 and Star Trek Lower Decks and Picard and now this talk of this kids animated series. Like, I'm excited. This is great. And CBS, the guy who's managing the schedule for all that says, yeah, we don't want to overwhelm people. It's going to be coming out on a decent schedule, spaced out appropriately. Like, that's great. All of it's great. And this is a really happy, hopeful note for Star Trek in general, this episode. And, there's a moment where Pike is looking for help with the situation, and he's going around the bridge getting opinions, and might seem like he's initially resistant to Burnham's suggestions and not even willing to hear what she has to say, but he's humble enough to stop and slow down and actually receive the solution that she's got along with her dissenting opinion. And how this stood out to me was, this is how I'd like to believe the writers, creators of this show are relating to the community. They are asking for feedback, and initially they may be frustrated, they may be annoyed, they may be resistant to doing the kinds of things or responding to the kinds of criticism that we as the fan base give them, but ultimately they listen, and they have integrated it, and they have made Discovery more like the original series and more like Star Trek in general. And so, everything has worked out, and everything is working out. And I think it's that reciprocal relationship. In fact, it's like a meta moment of compassion here, because there's this acute consciousness and sensitivity to the impact that this franchise and these stories have on human consciousness, perception, and experience, and a willingness to lovingly, generously, intelligently handle the content and do it right and do it in a way that satisfies us. And, they are listening, and they are taking our feedback and criticism into account, and they're incorporating it. And it's a dialectical relationship where we as the audience are being empathized with by the writers. And it's just this other sort of added dimension of compassion and empathy. And empathy, this thing that Sarek wants Spock to learn, right? Because it's important, like it's structurally to relate to humans or whatever. Like it's kind of the most important thing. And I would say probably the most important thing. And so, the fact that it's shown up in so many ways on so many levels in this episode, it's Star Trek. It makes me happy. I give it a 9.7 out of 10. I didn't see really any problems. Final thoughts, you guys. Richard, let's start.
9 out of 10.
Is there anything
which
missing?
Is very good. And I would say it's extremely promising. Set up a lot of interesting stuff. Set up a lot of stuff I'm excited to see. Set up a lot of simple stuff that I think these writers can actually do. And so I'm looking forward to the rest of the season.
Tyler.
Call this episode the beginning of a journey of a sibling that I have grown to love and look forward to seeing grow further.
Out of 10.
Yeah, if you want to use numbers, sure.
And this, ladies and gentlemen, has been Clever Orbits. We appreciate you. Please like, comment, share, subscribe, or criticize. You can even dislike if you want. That's what the buttons are for. Look forward to us releasing a lot of great content very shortly. And Richard, Tyler, thanks for being on, guys.
Always a pleasure.